Move number 1. Change these radians into degrees. Multiply this by 180 over pi. Your pi's are going to cancel. What's 180 divided by 4? Okay, it's a 45 degree. Now look, this 7 means you're just going to have 7 45 degrees. So if I start here, there's 145, 245, 345, 445, 545, 645. 7 45s is right there. So this angle is huge. It's a big, big, big angle. But you're going to do the trig on this little sliver right here. So make your bow tie. Go straight up 90 degrees. And these are both 45 degree angles. What do you know about a 45, 45, 90? It's half of a what? So draw the other half. The other half's going to look like this. And you choose your own dimensions. If I want this square to be 10 by 10, what's your diagonal going to be? It's going to be whatever the length times the square root of 2. Okay, now the one thing that's tricky, depending on the position, these signs can change. For example, this 10 is negative. Why is it negative? Because it goes down. So they're asking you for the tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So if you look from right here, opposite is negative 10, adjacent is 10, so it's got to be D. It's got to be a negative 1. Okay, change it to degrees, so let's times it by 180 over pi. What's 180 divided by 6? That's just a 30 degree angle. So 30 degree angle is not too bad. It's just going to be that angle right there. So if you make your bow tie, come down, make a 90 degree. A 30, 60, 90 is half of an equilateral triangle. Your other half is opposite the 30 degree. Because in an equilateral you got a 60, 60, and there is your 60. Make up your own dimensions. If I want it to be 10, 10, and 10, then I know that this is 5, and the base is always 5 times the square root of 3. So now they want sine. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite from the 30 is 5. Hypotenuse is 10. 5 over 10 is the same as 1/2. It's always going to clean up and give you 1/2. Look at 18. So this problem is tricky because it wants them in that order. So what are the chances of winning gold? 1 out of, only 1 medal out of 5 racers. What are your chances if that person takes gold? Now what are your chances that Louise is going to take silver? 1 out of 4, because Mary's already finished. So now there's only 4 runners. So now there's 4 runners, but Louise takes second. So what's the chances Sue's going to get bronze? 1 out of 3. So if you want them in that order, then you multiply the chances of the gold times the chances of the silver times the chances of the bronze. So it's going to be 1 out of 60 that will happen in that exact same order. Okay, 30 degrees. So you're going to multiply always either by pi over 180 degrees or 180 degrees over pi. And this one you've got to choose pi over 180, so your degrees will cancel. 30 divided by, cross cancel your 30 and your 180, so it's going to be pi over 6. What about this one? What about going the other way? So I guess it's the same way. 100 degrees. You got to multiply it by pi over 180. So your degrees cancel. I'm going to cancel my zeros. So really you got a 10 on top and an 18 on bottom. Divide them both by 2. So that's a 5 on top and a 9 on bottom. So D, 5 pi over 9. So I know.
So wait, you went to 10 to minus 0, so it's 10 degrees and 18 degrees.
So I divided them both by 10 first, killed the zeros. So are you good? Are you good to that part?
Yeah, and then you also got 5 somewhere.
Yeah, because then my 10 and my 18, I divided them both by 2.
Okay.
So the 10 changes to a 5, 18 changes to a 9. Okay, the arcsin. What does the arcsin mean? It means the sine of, whoops, of what arc is 1/2, or the sine of what angle is 1/2. Because remember, angles and arcs are the same thing on the unit circle. So angle is what we're good at in degrees. Arc is radians. So look, do you remember this? If you have an angle, let's say that's 30 degrees, the radian is measuring the portion of the circumference of that circle. So the radian is measuring the part of this arc. This guy right here, the angle's measuring the degrees, the radians measures arc. So we just barely did this one. Sine. Sine, you got to know this. It's opposite over hypotenuse. And if your sine really is 1/2, by now you should know 1/2 comes from, does it come from a 30-60-90 or a 45-45-90? No, it doesn't come from a 45-45-90. It comes from a 30-60-90. So you start drawing your own picture, 30-60-90. You start making up your own dimensions. A 30-60-90, if I go 10, 10, 10, this is half, so that's going to be 5, and this is going to be 5 square roots of 3. Okay, the sine is going to give you 1/2. So it's going to be 5/10. So 5 is the opposite. 5 is opposite what angle? The 30 or the 60? The 30. So does the sine of 30 really equal 5/10? The sine of any 30-degree angle is going to be 5/10. So your answer is 30 degrees. But they want radians. So you got to convert it to radians, which is A. No. They're not going to give you a calculator. You're going to have to do all this by hand. Yes. Okay, so here's what we know. 1 pi equals 180 degrees. Okay, now they want, this is 1 pi radian. So all they want is 1 radian. They want you to ditch the pi. How are you going to ditch the pi? Since it's 1 times pi, divide by pi, divide by pi. 180 divided by pi is about 57 degrees. So here's what this means. 57-degree angle. So this comes from a unit circle. If your circle has a radius of 1, so let's say that's a 57 degree. 57 degrees, if your radius is 1, then this distance right here on the circumference from here to here, this arc length, is also 1. So the arc length is just 1. Alright. Inverse function. Move number 1. Let's write it as y equals x cubed minus 5. Okay, now to find the inverse, all you're going to do is switch your x and y spots. So I'm going to go x equals y cubed minus 5. Now you solve for y. So I'm going to undo the minus 5. I'm going to plus 5 plus 5. So you should have x plus 5 equals y cubed. How do you undo a cube? You've got to do the cube root. So you got to cube root this. So your answer should be the inverse is the cube root of x plus 5. But if you go through A, B, C, D, it's not up there. But yeah, why are you drawn to B? Because 1/3 is the same thing as a cube root. You can go x plus 5 to the 1/3, and that's the same thing as a cube root. 24. Real quick. But if you don't know how to do it, so let's try Lindsay's strategy. Let's try C. Let's see if it is C. Your answer is the one place, if you're looking at the picture, the one place where they cross. So it is one x and y they both have in common. So if I think that x is 3, so I got to plug 3 into the top. 3 plus what number is 5? What does y have to be? 2? Okay, if I plug it into the bottom, 2 times 3, 6 minus 1 equals y. What is y? Okay, I know this is wrong because y is going to give you the same answer. So look, we eliminate C. So what one do you want to try next? What one is the answer? D? If you try 2, look at 2. 2 plus what number is 5? So y would have to be 3 on the top. On the bottom, 2 times 2 minus 1 is 3. That's it. It is D. But now, algebraically, let me show you how to do it algebraically. So that's kind of street smarts. Algebraically, we should have totally done it the first of the year if you didn't know how, because this is a sweet skill to have. Y plus 2x minus 1. Okay, move number 1. I'm going to use this principle. If you have 2 plus 3 equals 5, 4 minus 6 equals negative 2, I can add vertically. 2 plus 4 is 6, 3 minus 6 is minus 3, 5 minus 2 is 3. You can add vertically and manipulate two equations, and you still have a truth, and a truth. So, look at this guy. I'm going to rearrange. Hold on. This is the equal sign. Okay, I'm going to make my bottom look like my top. So my top's going to be x plus y equals 5. My bottom is going to be a negative 2x plus y equals negative 1. Is that right? So I just moved the x's over to be with my y's. Okay, now I'm going to add them up vertically, but I'm going to force my y's to eliminate. So look at this. If I have y plus y, that's 2y. But if I have y minus y, that's 0. So I'm going to change this to a minus. I've got to change that to a plus and change that to a plus. So 2x plus x is 3x. And 5 plus 1 is 6. 3x equals 6. X has to equal 2. And if you know x is 2, then you just plug it into either the top or the bottom. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. Y's got to be 3. It is. Okay, so the two skills that if we could have you be pro at the end of the year would be quadratics and factoring. So here's what they want you to do. They want you to take f of x, which is x squared minus 3x plus 2, and divide by g of x, which is x squared minus 4. So your factoring skills make this super fun. If you choose to look at this instead of as a addition problem. If you choose to look at it as a multiplication problem, which is totally legal, you can change perspectives. There's nothing wrong with changing perspectives. What times what's going to give you x squared minus 3x plus 2? X minus 2 and x minus 1. Okay, now what about the bottom? What times what's going to give you x squared minus 4? X minus 2 and x plus 2. So if I choose to look at it from this perspective, now it's quite easy, because I can x minus 2 on top and an x minus 2 on bottom, those will cancel out, so you're left with on top an x minus 1 and on bottom an x plus 2. So it should be, is it up there? C. Should be this one right here. Good idea. Alright, children, attention right here. Oh, I can't draw over it. This is the first Delta High School. 100%. Everybody chooses A. It is right, so good choice. So, y is what? Sweet. So if you plug that in, then you should have y plus 4 equals 8. So y does have to be 4. Now if you know y is 4 and z is 2, you're going to have to plug them in right at the top. So 2 times something is given, or 2 times something plus a 16 plus a 6 equals 24. So now solve for x. 16 plus 6 is 22. So 22 plus 2x is totaling at 24. What does x have to be? X has to be 1, because 22 plus 2. So it is D. Okay, 28. Okay, now look, this is an interesting question, because in math this means two different things. In the context of your probability and your statistics, the range is going to be the spread. So our largest was 36, our smallest was 1. Between 1 and 36 we covered 35, but now look on 29. Or not 29, look at domain, which one has, look at 31. Okay, 31 is using the same word, range, but now it's talking about something different. Okay, y equals 3. The graph, if you look at the graph, y equals 3 is going to be on the y-axis 1, 2, 3. There's a dot. You're going to have a horizontal line that goes through that point. Okay, your range is the y number line. So this graph covers from where to where on the y number line. It only covers one number, and that's 3. So your range is the y number line. Your range is just 3. What if it would have been a vertical line? What if it would have been a line like this? Then what would your range be? So the y number line, how far up does that graph go? How far down does it go? It goes through every single number possible. Yeah. So look, here's the dot 4 on the y-axis. This line does have a dot at 4. This line has a dot at 3.14 right here somewhere. This blue, sweet, what would the equation for the blue line? It would be x equals -3. Okay, let's go back to the ones we skipped. What about 29? Try 29. Another first. We have a nice step graph. Good job. Okay, now the domain. The domain is all of your x's. So you just gotta remember, domain is the x number line, the range is the y number line. So look at this. If you look at a table, if your function is the sine, can you take the sine of any degree? 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees. Is there anything you cannot take the sine of? Can you take the sine of a negative 1 degree? What does a negative 1 degree look like? So here's a positive 1 degree angle. This, you start the other way, you rotate. This is a negative 1 degree angle. So is there anything you cannot take the sine of? Can I take the sine of 2,455,682 degree angle? If you want. So I can take the sine of anything I want to. All reals, any number. What about 30? It is B. So look, domain is x's. So why is your answer B? Yeah. What happens when you choose x to be 3? Then you'd have 4 divided by 0. This is a scenario that you can never ever have. You can never divide by 0 because that's undefined. So x can be anything you want, but there's a huge problem when it's 3. So x can be anything, but don't ever let it be 3. Last one, we did 31. What about 32? What's the domain? Okay, your domain is x, so you gotta find whichever one has these 4 x's, a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. So it's gotta be D.